Why do people play trading card games competitively? For some, it's all about the strategy of deck building and making the right move at the right time. Checkmate. For others, it's the social aspect, going to big events with a community that all have one thing in common, their enjoyment of a hobby. But there is another reason, based off the literary device known as the rule of cool, that forgives the most egregious design mistakes, the most die-roll-dependent formats, and the worst deck diversity. A reason that makes bad games good and good games mid. Hype moments in Aura.
Full attack here and get him with Settle the Wreckage. And there it is, Settle the Wreckage from Luis Scott Vargas, and he wins 3 games to 0 over Jeremy Dezani to put himself back into the Pro Tour Finals.
Know Your Meme, yeah, there's not a lot of good sources for this, explains hype moments in Aura as a term that originated from the Jujutsu Kaisen community as a contrast to good writing. The idea is that games or other media will use hype moments in Aura to cover up or outright replace good writing and gameplay. Solo Leveling is a prime example of a show that lands on the far end of this good writing versus hype moments in Aura scale. Not a lot of story or writing, but a ton of cool moments that bring it great success. Now, despite what the Sigma edits claim, I'd put something like Blade Runner 2049 at the other end of the scale. It does have great writing, but it's slower paced, and Ryan Gosling isn't exactly throwing the bankai at everyone he sees. Of the 3 TCGs I put some amount of time into, they each have their place on this scale. In the Pokemon TCG, the game plays out at sorcery speed, which means that players get an opportunity to play out their turn and their plan before their opponents can interact with it. The game also has a loose resource system. Pokemon are free unless you're evolving, can't do it the same turn they come in. Items are free, wheels and force switch-ins are free, okay, well, limited to once per turn, but still no inherent resource cost. The game also is emulating the vibe of the video games, with the primary way of winning being to knock out your opponent's Pokemon. And this overall really just brings up the feel and vibe of it. You are a Pokemon trainer attempting to beat another trainer's Pokemon in a battle, just like in the video games, just like in the show. The game also, being Pokemon, has plenty of different Pokemon to choose from, and each Pokemon is somebody's favorite, and if yours happens to be good or even not good, you can play it in the game. As you can see, my favorite Pokemon is Darkrai, so when I had an opportunity to build Darkrai V-Star, this is what I played. And yeah, it's a very glass cannon-y strategy, but the vibe of it is literally bring back energy from the graveyard, put it onto Darkrai, and start slamming with a gigantic attack. And the fact that I can do that with my favorite Pokemon is really cool. Now, in Yu-Gi-Oh!, there's a lot more ways to interact with your opponent, both on and off the field and off and on their turn. But the closest thing Yu-Gi-Oh! Has to a true resource is one normal summon until it's not, and once per turn effects. Because of this, you can play out your hand as far as it allows you to go. And Yu-Gi-Oh!'s extra deck gives you a plethora of other options, from extenders to surgical removal at the right time to Big Gundam that blows up everything. And speaking of Gundams, big flashy end pieces are at the heart of several Yu-Gi-Oh! Archetypes. A lot of decks utilize these Timmy-styled boss monsters with Protect the King strategies with layered effects to try and protect them and stop your opponents from doing their thing. You want to end on a key card, boss monster, or board state, and questions such as how do I play around my opponent's hand traps or how do I break their board tend to be answered by either working around their hand traps, having a card that negates their hand traps, or baiting out their interaction, then hitting them with a card that sends them back to the Stone Age. It's a game where, yes, there is interaction and back and forth gameplay, but that interaction isn't always one for one. The threats in Yu-Gi-Oh! Tend to be better than the interaction trying to stop them once said threat hits the field, so board breakers are less one for one and more one for everything. Coincidentally, this type of Protect the King strategy lends really well to hype and Aura. Magic the Gathering is... Now, Magic the Gathering does have some hype moments in Aura. It's the Pro Tour Dominaria Finals. Goncalo Pinto on red-black aggro versus Wyatt Darby on mono-red aggro. Wyatt Darby, who started the finals 2-0, has now lost 2 games in a row, and a potential third and final loss looks to be heading his way like a freight train. Goncalo gets off to a fast start. A turn 1 Soulscar Mage eats a Lightning Strike, but he follows up with turn 2 Scrap Heap Scrounger into turn 3 Aethersphere Harvester, a sideboard piece that soars the matchup in his favor. Not only can it block well, even being able to eat Rekindling Phoenix and survive, its ability to gain lifelink adds survivability in a matchup all about aggressive damage. Wyatt does develop his board state with a Goblin Chain Whirler, Soulscar Mage, and Rekindling Phoenix, but Goncalo swings with Aethersphere Harvester, has an incredible curve out, and plays a Rekindling Phoenix of his own, putting Wyatt on the back foot. Blocking Goncalo's Phoenix with his own, a Goblin Chain Whirler cleans up his Elemental token, losing the Phoenix for good. He follows up with Hazoret the Fervent, but his Phoenix was more important than Goncalo's, and Goncalo's Pia Nalar threatens to pump his artifact creatures, notably his 1/1 Flying Thopter and Aethersphere Harvester. It looks like the reverse 3 stock on Wyatt Darby is closing in. However, Goncalo then draws 2 5-drops, Siege Gang Commander and Glorybringer, with no 5th land. He's able to deploy his additional Scrap Heap Scroungers and attack in the air, but without that 5th land, he ever so slightly stumbles. Wyatt, at 4 life and facing lethal, top decks a Braid. Back to Goncalo. No 5th land. Playing it safe, he attacks for exactly lethal in the air, perhaps calling Wyatt's bluff. Wyatt responds with a Braid, destroying Goncalo's Harvester. Goncalo buffs his Thopter with Pia Nalar to 3 power, bringing Wyatt to just 1 life. It's now or never. Any burn spell, a Goblin Chain Whirler, even just not being able to answer the Thopter token is lethal, and the Pro Tour champion title will slip away with his last point of life. He draws his final card.
For this draw step, or we are done here. Was that a Glorybringer?
That's a Glorybringer.
Oh my goodness.
11.
Hazoret gets blocked. Kari's at
Everything-
3.
nothing
Soulscar Mage is 1. Chain Whirler is 3.
11.
Glorybringer's 4.
Did he just
That's 11
top deck
damage.
The Pro Tour Glorybringer off the top for Wyatt Darby? He's done the math. He's clears the Chain Whirler. All Pinto can do is look at lethal damage. He can't believe that Wyatt Darby just stole the Pro Tour from him. And that's going to do it. Wyatt Darby is your Pro Tour Dominaria champion in an unlikely comeback in game number 5.
This moment is amazing to someone like me. The overwhelming force at the beginning that stalled just slightly, just enough. The tension in the air over Wyatt Darby's top decks, the different potential lines Goncalo had in that moment. To someone like me, an established player, this moment is amazing. To a prospective player, however, the ebb and flow of Magic's version of Hype Moments Nora just doesn't have enough solo leveling in them to attract eyes like a full turn of Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon. Magic the Gathering has a top deck on turn 9 that swings a game of many small decisions in the direction of the victor. Pokemon has powerful searchers, items, supporters, and Pokemon abilities allowing you to set up your board state quickly in the first few turns. Yu-Gi-Oh! Even more so, with access to powerful cards at all times through the extra deck as mentioned before, and throwing monsters down rapidly using the special summon mechanic. Now, while MTG struggles to capture the attention of new players at a glance from its gameplay in general, the first few turns being whole bundles of nothing doesn't really help that. When people say, it's the Gathering, not the Magic, the quiet part is, this would be boring without friends.
Why is Commander such a popular format?
One of the reasons is that it's one of the few ways to play Magic and get your hype moments in Aura due to the social aspect. Excessive interaction is frowned upon by a lot of Commander players, and as we saw with Pokemon, less opportunities to interact gives you more time to set up your cool plays. And even in Commander, the first few turns of the game are used to ramp and set up your cool, flashy cards. And speaking of Commander, let's take a look at one particular Commander precon, one that built off the hype moments and nostalgia of yesteryear. In June 2024, Modern Horizons 3 released, and the Commander Precon Graveyard Overdrive released with it. While advertised as a graveyard deck, it clearly set out to capture the feeling of Jund Midrange, a Magic deck most popular from 2014 to 2017 that has since fallen out of the modern metagame. The deck tried to capture the iconic feeling of Jund, from 1-for-1 efficient removal to graveyard synergies, and even tried to capture the idea of a top deck war and bring it to Commander. And of course, what Jund deck would be complete without Tarmogoyf? This deck had new Goyfs, old Goyfs, Goyf synergies, even cards that created Tarmogoyf tokens, one of which was the face commander, Diso. In February 2025, Konami released the Blue Eyes White Destiny structure deck. The idea of the deck was to bring Blue Eyes White Dragon into a new era of Yu-Gi-Oh! It included brand new support, boss monster variants of the Blue Eyes White Dragon, and a good built-in onboarding package for someone wanting to play at locals. It's the old tried and true concept with Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure decks. Buy 3 and you're ready for locals. Both products use nostalgia to try and onboard both new and old players. For Graveyard Overdrive, it was for Commander. For Blue Eyes White Destiny, it was for the advanced format. So why didn't Graveyard Overdrive work as well as a product versus Blue Eyes White Destiny? Well, look at the type of nostalgia they're selling. Blue Eyes White Destiny sold the nostalgia of the Blue Eyes White Dragon, an incredibly popular legacy monster in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game and TV show. Graveyard Overdrive sold the nostalgia of playing Jund in 2014 and Tarmogoyf. So unless you were playing Magic in 2014 in a specific way, in a specific format, Graveyard Overdrive isn't really gonna appeal to you, the boomer player that Wizards of the Coast desperately wants to come back and play Commander. And I'm sorry, but Tarmogoyf does not hold a candle to Blue Eyes White Dragon. And most of that reason is built on its prevalence at the competitive level at certain times in certain formats. It's like the leftist meme joke, but with reasons for liking a card. So if boomer players don't really care because they either play different formats and don't want to come back to Commander, or already have a Commander deck based on their own personal nostalgia, and new players don't see an appeal in Tarmogoyf because they didn't play at a time when it was good, it becomes pretty apparent why Blue Eyes White Destiny absolutely smokes it in terms of concept execution. Do I make Tarmogoyf tokens, or do I create the fucking Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon? So with all of that out of the way, how does Wizards of the Coast solve the problem of Magic the Gathering lacking in character popularity? Do they invest time and effort into making compelling characters again? Well, that kind of defeats the purpose of hype moments in Aura. Blue Eyes White Dragon and Gardevoir at a base aren't popular because of big walls of text. They're popular because they're cool designs with a lot of brand recognition. Brand recognition. Hey, that's a great idea! How do you add popular characters like Pikachu and Dark Magician to your trading card game? Well, you could spend a lot of time fleshing out lore and building your game around these characters, but profit is a short-term endeavor, and Hasbro has taken a different approach. One of the goals of Universes Beyond was to bring new players to the game. A Fallout fan who doesn't have any interest in Magic the Gathering might start playing because they can run Mr. House as their commander. The co-opting of already beloved characters is a genius way to speedrun having a character roster like Pokemon. Take from IPs who have already done the work for you and slap them onto your card game. Now, I know there is a lot of controversy surrounding Universes Beyond, from its implementation, to the erosion of Magic the Gathering as its own IP, to being force-fed Universes Beyond cards in standard legal sets. But when viewed through the lens of hype moments in Aura, it makes a lot of sense.
While the entrenched, old head, and competitive Magic players joke at the idea of Iron Man and My Little Pony attacking each other,
the prospective player sees their favorite character as a playable card and picks up the newest precon, or sees their favorite TV show and buys a box. They see a cool character, location, or moment from a piece of media they like, and suddenly, Wizards of the Coast has manufactured a hype moment, perhaps with some Aura thrown in. With a rule system that has, well, a lot, Universes Beyond is a great way to hide these complexities or unfun gameplay moments to a newer player. Who cares if setup takes your first few turns? You can use those turns to ramp into Cloud. So what if your key creature got blown up by a board wipe? Dino DNA can bring it back as a dinosaur from Jurassic Park. Jace, Sarkhan, the Eldrazi, Nicol Bolas, none of them even compare to Furby, baby! To the entrenched or competitive player, it can be tiring, but they're mostly there for the good gameplay, so unless something comes along to mess up that loop, they're likely not leaving. But to the prospective player, good gameplay just doesn't have the same siren song allure as hype moments in Aura.
Well, this one ended pretty strangely at the end. I mean, I hope the guy's all right wherever he may be, but as for the point of the video, I think really, does Magic have hype and aura? I think it is truly up for you, the viewer, to decide. It kind of depends on your feelings on the matter. And I think both sides are kind of correct in this sense. If you like this kind of stream where I go over these old VHS tapes I find, please let me know in the comments and posts. Please be sure to subscribe to me, like this video. I've got a Patreon all set up. It's not that set up yet, for the record, but so if you don't have any money, please don't use it. I'm reopening it again. It doesn't have much on it, but I hope to get that all set up for you, my loyal viewers. And so if you're rich or have disposable income and you want to give me a tip for my hard work digging up these MTG VHS videos, then please go ahead and leave that. I've got a link for that down in the description below. I hope to revamp that sometime soon. If you're expecting anything like particularly cool, like a custom emote on the channel, I don't have that yet. I apologize. Just a tip jar if you feel like you want to toss something at me. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. And again, be sure to like, subscribe, comment down below what you thought, dear viewer. This is Jinro MTG, signing off.